Don't you hate uncertainty? I sure do. But whether I like it or not, uncertainty is the first thing I have to tackle every morning as soon as I wake up. And from that point on, everything is a choice. Consciously or subconsciously, I choose to do something over something else. Obviously, I'm trying to be more aware of my choices and be deliberate about it, but most of the time, I just go with my day. And I personally would like to be more in control of how I go about my day. Make life happen instead of letting it happen to me, so to speak. What I found helpful is to have as much clarity as possible about the big things in my life. The vision. Because that will influence my everyday decisions, big and small, including those that I make on autopilot. Getting clarity about what I want creates an overall context for everything I do, consciously or subconsciously. Remember the Oracle from the Matrix when she met Neo? She said something that landed really hard for me. We cannot see past the choices we don't understand. And so after years of doing all sorts of self-development and growth work, this one line from a sci-fi movie made the biggest impact. Welcome to my brain. But jokes aside, it doesn't really matter what triggers us, it's what we do with it. And so for me, it was a question I kept asking myself, what if I actually know what makes me make certain choices and what lies beyond? And it turned out that most of my choices, at least those that I can consciously identify, are based on having or not having clarity about what I want. Lack of clarity will most likely lead me to staying safe, which means that my decisions are really based on fear, doubt, and shame. I'm 100% going to fall back into the familiar place where I resort to preserving comfort and avoiding action. I will not be taking any risks. I will be looking to preserve the status quo and please everyone around me, to be liked and to feel like I belong. Getting clarity became my goal for everything consequential in my life. But what clarity means to me may mean something different to you. Like I said, clarity to me boils down to knowing what I want. And it is a hard thing to figure out. The first thing I did was to stop wasting time and money on all this superficial self-improvement stuff, all the lecturing and philosophizing. And so instead, I focused on creating my own rules to figure out how to know what I want. And it had to be practical, easy, and effective. If you watched my previous episode, you know that the system I adopted is 5WH, which is built around answering 6 basic questions. What, why, who, when, where, and how. After a decade of using this terrific tool, I got it to work just right. Well, so I think. Anyway, with almost no effort at all, 5WH is great right out of the box. But I use these 4 additional techniques or pillars to make it even more durable and effective. I picture them as a scaffolding that props it up. But putting WH aside just for a second, I found that these 4 pillars are also helpful with something else, and that's motivation and focus. And those are tough things to make happen. But on the flip side, it takes practically nothing to kill motivation off. And so for me, clarity creates motivation. And once I'm motivated, I can focus. But then the opposite is also true. If I'm not motivated, I will not focus, and I couldn't care less about getting clarity. So chicken, meat, egg. I lost count how many times I would go through all the steps in 5WH, come up with a plan, and get all pumped up about it, and then watch how life, in all of its frustrating wonder, happens next day and takes my perfect plan right down the crapper. And any motivation I had goes right down with it. And so I rely on these 4 things to not only clarify and contextualize my ideas and projects, but also not to get demotivated and lose focus prematurely. If you're able to get hyper-focused, stay on task and not get distracted, you are a superhuman and probably don't need any of this. But if you're like me, who deals with a lot of things in many places, all happening at once, I think you will find it helpful. Do these 4 techniques always work? Of course not. There's no magic button, but they're better than nothing. All right, 4 techniques, let's go. Let's talk about my 4 pillars. Pillar number 1, focus on the process and not the goal. Yes, you probably heard this one a million times, and we all have a different take on that. To me, for the longest time, it was one of those things that I understood intellectually but couldn't quite articulate it in practical terms. And if I can't explain it, I can't do it. So eventually I came up with 4 easier to digest proxies. Proxy number 1, if I hate getting there, I will not love the outcome. So forcing something will not work. Number 2, I actually need to have a process to focus on, because aiming for something isn't a process. But so what is a process? I had thought that process is all about action, doing, being an act of making something. But it's actually 3 things: input, action, and output. Simple, right? Well, when I laid it out like this, I had a bit of a duh moment. This is 5WH in a hat. If you've been following along, the input is the product of the W's, and the H is the action that produces the output. Proxy number 3. Focusing on the process means that I need to be okay with my goals getting reset, reshaped, and moving around. Practically speaking, absolutely all projects, from mundane yard chores to multi-million-dollar corporate initiatives, tend to evolve and change over time. And that means that whatever goal I initially set, it will evolve and change, and the outcome may actually look quite different from what I envisioned at the beginning. Or the goal will remain, but the path to get there is not what I thought it would be. But honestly, it's very likely that the goal will evolve and the path will be different. And so if I'm stiff and fixated on getting exactly the thing that I decided on at the beginning, it will feel like working against a moving target. It's frustrating, it's exhausting, and fear of failure takes hold really fast. And so all my energy will go toward fixing, stabilizing, and reinforcing that desired outcome. But in reality, I actually end up suffocating it. I become defensive and risk-averse because I don't want to be judged, because I want to please, and that makes me afraid to own what I do. And that will make me unable to make and own my decisions. I would become rigid, and rigid is fragile. Now, I'm not suggesting that we bumble around aimlessly. We absolutely have to have the vision for what we want and check in with it frequently. No question about that, but having a vision is quite different from obsessing over a very specific outcome. I know that when I do that, I miss all the wins, all the good stuff, the ideas, and the opportunities that show up along the way. And to top all that off, I have no mental capacity left to create, play, and enjoy my life. And so what I do is I come back to my 5WH to review, update, and re-inspire. Very often, this is my project's blueprint after all. This is where I will see if I need to make a course correction and how I would do that. Lastly, proxy number 4, notice and acknowledge progress. Looking back at my days, I tend to notice the negatives first. Things that did not work out, things I said and did not say, things I regret, mistakes I made, awkward moments, whatever. I basically denigrate myself. But it comes with a cost. If I belittle and undervalue myself, then I and others will undervalue what I do. If I think what I do doesn't matter, or it isn't good, then there is nothing left but the negative. And if the downside is all I've got, I will 100% hate getting there. And if I hate getting there, I will not like the outcome. So whenever I feel like my day was just not good, I'm forcing myself to deliberately look for things that went right, lit me up, made me happy. And if nothing comes to mind because I'm too in it, I force myself to look for 3 things that happened right. Like, I had a great workout in the morning, my commute was uneventful, and I really enjoyed the book I'm reading in the series I love. And a lot of the time it makes a difference, and it mutes the noise in my head quite a bit. And when it's less noisy in here, I can stop looking back at what happened and enjoy right now, and then start creating for tomorrow. Pillar number 2, eliminate friction. As projects gain velocity, they gain complexity. Complexity creates friction 100% of the time. We're dealing with home and family, budgets, team performance, people quitting, schedule, rework, miscommunication, stakeholders, bureaucracy, technical problems, you name it, I guarantee it will happen. I am not aware of a way to completely eliminate friction from my processes. But what I can do is try to minimize friction. Because if I don't, and I hit resistance in my projects, and on top of that my process is sticky, anything I do will feel like a frustrating double whammy. Because now I'm managing 2 things, my project and my process. And so to identify my friction points, I do 2 things. First, I run what I call a friction test. Just list everything that gets in my way when I'm working. A brain dump of irritants. And then I use my 5WH method to figure out the specifics and take action. For the longest time, my top friction point was task management. Because I have multiple projects and development tasks to tackle at any point. I've got people to manage, I've got money to control, I've got bosses to keep happy and out of my way. I always have too many things in too many places all happening at once. I spent years trying different task management tools, but nothing seemed to quite do it for me. It had to be easy and simple and effortless because anything else would 100% create friction. But then I had to define what easy and simple is for me. And for me, that's the ability to create actionable items with an absolute minimum of manual input. The less I have to type or write, the more likely I will capture it quickly, and then the less of a chance I end up missing something. Because if I'm constantly worried that I missed something or whether my list is up to date, it will create, friction. And so finding the right solution for my task management has been a decade-long challenge for me, and I cannot wait to share with you how I solved it. I'm working on a couple of episodes about how I manage my task and workflow using standard Apple apps, reminders, notes, shortcuts, mail, calendar, and freeform. So follow me, and I will let you know when it's ready. The second aspect to eliminating friction is to bar interruptions. We all struggle with it, but we're also all adults here and we know exactly what we need to do. Fun fact, some years ago there was a study conducted by Gloria Mark, a professor at UC Irvine. It showed that it takes an average of 23 minutes to fully regain focus after being interrupted. Something to think about. My third pillar is to simplify everything and not overthink, which is really another way of saying what all of us already know. Choose the path of least resistance. Go with the flow. Complexity creates friction. And so before I start a new task and go down the rabbit's hole of complexity, I ask myself, what is the easiest, fastest, and simplest way to accomplish whatever I'm doing? I can always scale things up and make them more complicated if need be. Scaling down, though, is not always easy or even possible, depending on the project and where I am in the process. Anyway, I watch out for these 4 red flags that mean that I'm overcomplicating something. Red flag number 1, going in circles trying to solve something only to realize that I'm coming back to where I started. When this happens, I know I'm too close to something, I'm overthinking, I'm trying to get it right, and I'm no longer seeing the big picture. And so I step back and sometimes even remove myself from solving that thing for a day or two to air my thoughts out and to reset the bird's eye view. Second red flag, making things perfect by constantly revising my work. And that's a hard one because I want my product to be perfect. We all do. But the reality is that unless I know all the variables in the universe, I will never be able to create anything perfect. What I can do is create a good enough product, and then I can iterate and make my next creation better. Third red flag, gold plating. That's a term from project management when we make slight irrelevant tweaks that serve no functional purpose to things that already work perfectly well. When I catch myself gold plating, it means that I don't know how to move the project forward. And so instead of solving that uncertainty, I resort to pointless busy work. When I realize that, I know exactly what I need to do next. 5WH. And last red flag number 4, overcomplicated toolkit. If my workflow is bloated, it will create friction. This is a bigger topic than we have time today, and I plan to create a separate episode to unbutton this one. I just want to say that, in my experience, bloated workflows stem from fear of making and owning decisions, lack of knowledge, or feeling inadequate. And all of that is typically compensated for by doing a lot of busy work. I've personally known people who carried around a laptop and several notebooks, one for each project, and I've seen them spending an absolutely insane amount of time making sure their notes were up to date, they wrote down and sorted all of their to-dos, and everything was up and up. An unequivocal no to that. All right, my last pillar, number 4, is to create right physical environment. Creating a space to create, comfortable physical space that breeds ideas and feeds inspiration, and that both grounds me and gives me a mental space to concentrate, to think, and to experiment. It's super important to me. If I love my space, it stacks the deck in my favor from the moment I walk in. We're all visual creatures. Our brains are designed to process visual information first and more efficiently than anything else. When I enter or visualize a space that's not appealing, I immediately have an adverse reaction. I don't want to be there, let alone create in that space. By the way, I loved setting up my studio. There's one more thing to finish, and then we will have a tour of what I have here. And here we are, 4 support structures that help me hold my life together and make my system more effective. Focus on the process, eliminate friction, simplify everything, create comfortable space. I have a link to a free PDF with main points from today's episode down in the show notes. All right, next time, let's drill down into the hands-on, practical aspects of how I use the 5WH system. We're all done for today. I'll see you in the next one. Be well, and thanks for sticking around until the end. I love you.